Did anyone else get Beau's Afraid vibes from this scene? Because I definitely did. As someone who did Barbenheimer, I was actually pleasantly surprised to not only see people dressed up in pink, but quite a few people also dressed up as Oppenheimer, believe it or not. So that was quite a trip. I wasn't really sure what the movie was going to be like just because the trailer made it seem like it could go in a lot of different directions. And I would say for the first half to even first three quarters of the film, I actually really had a great time and I really enjoyed it. And I thought what they did was really smart and it was really fun. At the end of the day, it was really fun. My biggest issue has to do with the ending and the last quarter of the movie where it kind of unraveled at a certain point and kind of got a little messy and it wasn't as focused, and we'll get a little bit more into that in a bit, but that's really where my issues lie the most with this film. The film did a really great job of showing the importance, how, positive an impact Barbie did have on generations of little girls for decades. And then at the same time did a really great job at, criticizing the overall concept of Barbie appropriately and how the values of Barbie don't necessarily align with current values of today's modern woman. Ryan Gosling really brought a genuine authenticity to the role of Ken, and he was definitely, I think, provided the most laughs throughout the theater, multiple times. And he was one of my favorite parts of the film. And anytime he was on screen, I was just excited to see what was going to come out of his mouth or what he was going to do. He added a lot of playfulness to the role, and it worked really well. Margot Robbie, of course, was great as Barbie, and I don't think really anyone's criticizing the performances of the movie. I think everyone did a really solid job at, what they were trying to do with their specific roles. Maybe a lack of certain characters were a critique on my mind, because I would have liked to have seen, a little bit more from the other Barbies or Kens and, a little bit more of Alan. I thought Michael Cera was hilarious. I really enjoyed that as being Ken's buddy. Yes, and finding out that was an actual toy that came out at a time was pretty funny. So, the production design, the sets were absolutely gorgeous. You could tell they put so much thought and care into those. I especially loved the matte paintings for the backdrops and the atmosphere for Barbie Land. I thought that was really, really beautiful and really well done. Just very reminiscent of films from the 1950s and 60s. And I've said this before on a couple of streams, but if you guys are really into production design in general, Architectural Digest did an amazing video, and it's on YouTube, about all of the set pieces that were used in Barbie Land. And a lot of those were things you could have purchased at a Toys R Us at one point. Really interesting and really clever, and I think you guys would really enjoy it if you're into that kind of thing. A lot of the negatives I have really do have to do with the end. I really think that Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig are just really, really talented artistic writers, both auteurs in a sense, they really have very specific voices. And I kind of heard those voices throughout the film, but I really think they were both just muddled and lost in the end. And I also think that their message got a little confusing. So Barbie was essentially just being awful to Ken, for the entire movie. And, I really did love the part where he goes into the real world and he sees what real men are like in the real world and, going to the gym and being, respected and all that stuff. And of course he overcompensates and becomes kind of a villain and goes a little overboard. But I think that the fact that at the very end of the film, when he's even asking just to be a part of the cabinet in the White House, the pink house, and they're just like, no, you're not allowed to do that. And it's I think that kind of defeats the purpose, because they could have found a nice compromise where he was allowed to do something there. Because otherwise you're just keeping, him down and the rest of the Kens down. And it doesn't, I don't think that's the right message to be sending. I think you're not going to make any progress if you are just keep shutting out a certain demographic to voice their opinion. And I think that that's really what they did. So I was really uncomfortable with that. And I actually think that was a really like not the right choice. I think it would have been a much better ending, just to say like, yeah, you can join us, Ken. Like, we didn't even know you were interested. So that really, that could have made a much bigger difference. And I think would have fit the film's intended messaging. It would have furthered it much better. And with that, it really shows that Barbie didn't really learn any lessons. I mean, she kind of learned how to become a human. And I do think Margot Robbie really hit those emotional beats well throughout the movie, except for the end, which kind of, the pacing was weird. The editing was weird. It kind of dragged. I didn't really feel anything for her at that point in time, but I did feel those things earlier in the film. But like, she didn't really learn how to be like kinder to people, I guess, or I guess to Ken's, which it's just so patronizing. And it's very uncomfortable. I also feel like the song they gave Ryan Gosling as Ken was very forgettable. You know, Ryan Gosling's an incredible singer, incredible performer, dancer. He literally could do anything you want to give him. And I felt like it was just a who cares song. I don't even remember how it goes. And I'm usually pretty keen on musical numbers. So, it kind of felt just like it was there. I don't know who they brought in to choreograph it, but it was just okay. They could have really nailed it out of the park with that one. And it's a shame that they missed that opportunity with him. Kate McKinnon was absolutely hilarious. I loved the fact that, she was the weird Barbie. As a kid, we've all seen certain girls have like the one that has the cutoff hair and the crayons all over them, and she was just perfect casting for that. She has those like perfect crazy eyes. And I miss her so much because she's not on SNL anymore. And she was one of my favorites on there. And when she like hissed at one point, like my boyfriend and I just like could not stop laughing. Like, I thought it was so funny and it was not expected and it was just really hilarious. So yeah, Weird Barbie was one of my favorite parts of the movie for sure. So all in all, I really think even though the end is a mess, I did have a great time. I'm really wondering what happened there in the writer's room with those two, because everything else is so focused and is so specific, and you can tell they have such a specific vision. And then it really all falls apart narratively at the end. And like, Ken doesn't really have that great of an ending. Barbie's ending's, I guess, fine. And everyone else, it's kind of like, well, we don't really see if the mother and daughter, America Ferrera, who was fantastic. We don't really, I guess they found a way to reconnect in some fashion. It wasn't over the top, but it could have been a little bit more powerful. And that also reminds me of America Ferrera's speech at the end. That speech had no impact because it felt like it was written by anyone. Like, you have two brilliant writers, and that was the best they could do for that speech of discussing all of the contradictory natures of being a woman and like what you have to do in the real world and like everything that we go through. Like, that's the best speech you came up with. It was really a letdown, and it was really just beating a dead horse, and it didn't really say anything in any way that was clever or intelligent. It was just complaining in a way that just fell flat to me. I don't know if you guys felt that way about America Ferrera's speech. And again, it was nothing to do with her. She was fantastic the whole movie, but the writing of that speech at the end, I felt like a 12-year-old could have written that. If that speech had been written with care and time and maybe a couple more rewrites, I think that really could have solidified that this movie was really just top-notch. And at the end of the day, it was such a letdown, and it had nothing to offer the audience at that point. So yeah, at the end of the day, the movie really could have been something incredible. If that last quarter of the movie had been a little bit more fine-tuned, if, there had been a few more rewrites, because it did feel sloppy and a little bit lazy, and both of those writers are not lazy writers, so I really don't know what happened. Who knows? But it's still a fun time, because, again, the majority of it I really loved, and I think there were really special moments in that movie, and I think that were moments of magic, of movie magic and fun, and a lot of laughter. So let me know if you guys see it. Have you done Barbenheimer? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. And thanks for stopping by.